Marathon runners, why in the world are you not running ultra marathons? Or why does it seem like when I have conversations about ultra marathon running, running 100 milers, 50 milers, any ultra marathon distance, you guys look at me like I just cut off my feet, strapped them to my back, and started flying away? It makes absolutely no sense. I've been obsessed with ultramarathon and marathon training, and I've kept up with a lot of YouTubers and books and documentaries about marathon, and I was always surprised about how much they train and their dedication to the sport, to running, to volume, to basically everything. Because if there's one person or there's one people that are fascinated and obsessed with running, it's freaking marathoners, because it starts coming in to every single part of their life. They're almost as bad as us ultra marathoners. Now, diving back into the world of marathon really got me thinking. There are three big reasons why you marathoners, the experienced and advanced marathoners, could absolutely crush it in ultra marathons. So much so that I'm going to do a little experiment with myself, and I'm going to strictly follow an advanced marathon training plan and see how it affects my 50 miler time that I have coming up in about 3 months. So let's jump right into the three big reasons why I think advanced and experienced marathoners should be able to absolutely crush ultra marathons. Let's go. The number one reason why I think marathon training plans can actually fit really well into ultra marathon planning and ultra marathon races is simply because of the volume that you marathoners are running. Some of you marathoners are running way more miles than ultra marathon runners. I mean, just in the books that I've been reading, there are plans that start at 50 milers, which is generally my minimum level of training that I would want to go into an ultra marathon, and they go all the way up to 100 miles. So, that's 100 miles a week or 50 miles a week. This is from a book called Relentless Forward Progress that I always recommend, because it is one of the books that actually got me into ultra marathon running and got me the ability to actually complete my first 100 miler, my first 100K. And it was a really good base level training that I still base a lot of my training on to this day. So I've been doing it for about 4 years, and of course I modify it and change it to what my needs are. When I got my first sub 24-hour 100 miler at the Vermont 100, and then I got a 21-hour 100 miler at the Yeti 100 during a hurricane, I was using this plan also. I just upped the mileage for the weekly amount, where I was hitting about 80 to 100 miles, which actually, spoiler alert, that's where a lot of the experienced and advanced marathon runners are actually landing on in their weekly mileage. So with Relentless Forward Progress, you just slowly build up your mileage throughout your actual training block, and then you'll typically have those little microcycles where you're doing 3 weeks of work, of building work, and then you'll have 1 week of absorption. So these gray areas are like the absorption weeks, where you drop the mileage, you put less stress on the body, so then your body can start absorbing all that training that you did for the previous 3 weeks. Now, there is a lot more emphasis on the back-to-back long runs for ultra marathon running. And I did do this for the first 2 years, and I seem to get injured a lot more with back-to-backs. Once again, a lot of this training is going to be based a lot on your biomechanics, on your genetics, on just how your body actually reacts to the training. Like, some people's body really likes these back-to-backs, and some people's bodies don't. Now, this current marathon plan that I'm actually doing right now, that I'm going to be using for the ultra marathon, is from Advanced Marathoning, and it kind of base level is around 100 miles per week. Your absorption weeks and like your lower weeks are going to be around 80 to 85 miles, and then when you're actually having your working weeks, it's around 100 miles, and that is a hell of a volume. And you're doing a lot of those miles in recovery and endurance, so you're kind of like floating around like low end zone 2 to high end zone 2 for a lot of those miles, and then they sprinkle in 3 runs a week where you're actually dipping into that tempo pace, that zone 3, and then also doing hill repeats and some VO2 max workouts. So there's a lot more variation of workouts that you can actually do that are prescribed on these marathon training plans. But we'll talk a little bit more about that, about the variations on the second step. But just in general, Like, this is 11 weeks away from a marathon, and you're hitting 100 miles, 102 miles, 103 miles. Your absorption week's 86 miles, which is basically where I peaked out for my last 100 miler, was around like 100, was around like those 86 to 90 miles. And then you're going back up to those 100 miles. So these are consecutive 100-mile weeks, which is, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. For ultramarathon, volume is king. Everybody talks about volume and how many miles you're running. But long story short, these intermediate to advanced marathon runners are running incredible volume. And, you know, with ultramarathon, you're running for volume because it's a long freaking race. So hopefully that fitness and that amount of volume can actually go into those further miles, in those ultra marathon level miles, and that's definitely something that I'm going to be testing. But nonetheless, a lot of intermediate to advanced marathon runners are running crazy volume, and that volume can be freaking used in these ultra marathons, the later stages of the ultra marathons, because that volume will no doubt make a huge aerobic engine that you can use for ultra marathons. So reason number 2, and that is variation and specificity of workouts and training. So I just got done with a 5-mile easy run, and this was a recovery day. So typically on marathon, at least the advanced marathon, you split up your recovery days from 1 run to 2 runs. So today I'm going to do a 6-mile recovery run and a 5-mile recovery run. I'm still doing 11 miles total for the day, but I'm also getting in a lot of recovery miles, which will also be helping build up that aerobic base that all ultramarathon runners need. A big engine to run off of while they're running those long, strenuous miles. And marathon training actually has a lot of these days for recovery, where you're going to be splitting up the mileage and the main focus is just recovery. You typically stay around 76 to 70% of your max heart rate zone. So you're really focusing on that aerobic engine and just trying to get your body to get the blood moving and recover as much as possible. If you're usually following a traditional ultramarathon training plan, a lot of your runs, probably the bulk majority of your runs, is actually just going to be in that zone 2 area. And it does get a little monotonous year after year, race after race. So adding in these variations and adding in these like zone 3 workouts and top speed workouts, the VO2 max workouts, really helps your low end like pace. And that's one of the biggest things that I've been really working on, is trying to get faster on the low end. So building up that higher pace ability and foot turnover and everything like that creates that zone 2, which is a lot more comfortable and a lot more faster. Well, that's the concept. I still have to go through this whole process and see how it works. But the thought process is, if you're able to sharpen all your tools in your quiver, then all the tools will be sharp and everything will rise. So it's kind of like that old saying, the rising tides will raise all ships. Honestly, for the couple weeks that I've actually been doing this marathon training, I've been at a much higher level of mileage. So I've been floating around 80 to 100 miles a week, and my legs and my overall body just feels so much better actually focusing on recovery and then pushing my body really hard on the actual workout days. So that variation of intensity and that variation of actual workouts, my body has been responding really well to, and I feel like I'm recovering a lot faster and feel like I'm actually building some fitness while I'm going through these different types of workouts. So hey, it's been working out for me. The third reason is the marathoner's emphasis on recovery and cross training and all the other parts of actual running, like the actual biomechanics, how your body's feeling. there is a lot more emphasis on how to properly recover, how to use tools in your toolbox that can make you better at running, where it might just be because ultramarathon running is still generally a new sport, or it's starting to come into public eye a lot later than marathon. There's a lot less ultramarathon runners than marathon runners. So there's a lot less literature, there's a lot less videos online, but there are so many videos on everything surrounding marathon that a lot of marathoners can, or ultra marathoners can actually use in their running on a day-to-day basis. So there's a lot of thought put into how foam rolling works, how your percussion guns will actually help you recover and spread out that myofascial release. Get all that good myofascial release to enhance your recovery, cold to hot, whatever it may be. There's a lot of literature that is actually out there that is specifically researched for marathon running, just because it is a much bigger sport. So all these little things are just cherry on the top. They're the little sprinkles that are on top of your ice cream. You put in all the work, but then you make sure that your body is nice and recovered. It's nice and strong. There's a lot of information about strength training. Oh, look at that. There's a lot of information about strength training with ultramarathon mobility. Not with ultramarathon, with marathon. So there's a lot of information about strength training and mobility and flexibility for marathon that a lot of ultramarathoners can actually just put into their toolkit also. So this is something that I've already started doing probably like 3 years ago, and that's really focusing on recovery and using these different types of tools to help out with recovery, and starting to get back into strength training to strengthen the body for running specifically. So this is something that even if you're not really focused on marathon or really even interested on marathon training, that you can definitely put into your toolkit to make your ultramarathon running better. Because even if you are only running marathon and only doing marathon style training, your body's going to get tired. Your body's going to get the potential to be injured, or you're going to get the potential to get sick due to overtraining. So the more that you can actually use these tools to properly recover, to stay healthy, to stay strong when you're 50 miles, 60 miles in, the better your running's going to be, whether you're a 5K runner, whether you're a sprinter, whether you're an ultramarathon runner, or whether you're a marathoner. These little things, these little sprinkles on top, these are the things that can actually really help you stay consistent and separate yourself from the pack. And it has helped me quite a lot in the past. Definitely the emphasis on recovery will really, really help ultramarathon, and I hope to stay on it, to stay healthy and stay consistent while I'm going down the marathon route. Those are the 3 big reasons why I think marathoners can actually transition pretty easily into ultramarathon. That's volume, that's specificity of workouts, and that's freaking the emphasis on recovery and all the other parts of running that marathoners really focus on, that they can bring into the ultramarathon world and be pretty successful. There is going to be that weird transitioning point where you have to stay in zone 2. Your fueling is going to be completely different. The gear that you're using is going to be completely different. The kind of muscles that you're working while you're on the trail is going to be pretty different also. So there will be that good transition period where you have to kind of switch from marathoner to ultramarathoner and get on the trail, get really specific with your actual training leading up to a race, where if you're going to be doing a lot of climbing, you're going to be on very technical trails, it's going to be a little bit more of a transition, and that's something that I'm going to definitely take into account leading up to this next 50 miler. So while I start getting closer and closer to the actual race, I'll start doing some of my easy runs more on trails and really trying to get the body used to running on trails, dodging roots and all, and going uphill and all that jazz. But honestly, when I really look back about this video and everything that I just said, it's really just becoming a more complete runner, being full-blown marathon runner, being full-blown ultra-marathon runner, being full-blown bodybuilder, being focused on one thing really puts blinders on you, so you're only focused on what you know, what you've been researching and what you've been doing. And this really is just trying to take those blinders off, become a more complete runner, and trying to see where I can take from marathon running, where I can take from bodybuilding, where I can take from weightlifting and all the other sports that I enjoy, what I can actually take from those sports and put it into the main thing that I like to do, and that's go and die on a trail for 100 miles. And I know a lot of pro ultra marathon runners actually do implement a lot of marathon style training into their actual program. So if you'd like to see how this little experiment works of using a marathon plan to run a 50-mile ultra marathon, follow along with me, subscribe, like, comment, and we'll see how it works. But the main thing, and this has always been the thing, consistency is king. So make sure that you're going out there and finding a training plan that you can be consistent with. It's way better to have 4 weeks or 5 weeks or 6 weeks of consistent training than having one big week of training. So I'll leave you with this: be consistent and run towards fear, because in that fear and running towards that fear is where we actually develop and we become better. So let's go out there and get it.